This is a Jmix exclusive.
Let's go ahead and jump into, did Tupac want to go to Vegas? How many people out there think that Tupac was happy to go to Vegas, that he was looking forward to Vegas, and he wanted to go to Vegas?
What up,
And
MacArthur?
and while they're answering that, RJ, what is your take on Tupac's trip to Vegas and what that was about?
Well, from everybody. I mean, I'm a little biased because I've seen all the interviews and I did all the interviews. Um, I think that Tupac's interest in going to Vegas dwindled. I think that I believe what Michael Moore said. I believe what Kenny Archer said. I believe that there was an altercation in New York the weekend before. I believe that Tupac was already having other things going on in his life that were taking him away from going to Vegas. And you got to understand something about that too. And this is something that nobody talks about. But you need to understand that for Tupac, going to Vegas was like an every other weekend thing. Going to see the fights, going to Vegas, that was basically home away from home. And anybody that gets in any kind of a relationship will tell you that not only do you change the way you feel about things, but if you're doing it all the time, there's nothing all that special or unique about it. The Tyson Seldon fight, Seldon was, a nobody. Tyson, it wasn't like Holyfield or somebody that had a big name. I mean, this was a weekend that was just basically, yeah, it was a Tyson fight, and Tyson was a friend. But after you've been to X amount of Tyson fights, and after you've been to Vegas X amount of times, and the other thing you got to realize too is Tupac had just come back from Italy. Okay. Vegas is a great place and it's really nice, but it doesn't hold a candle to Italy. Okay, anybody who's been to Italy will tell you that it doesn't hold a candle to it. So when we're talking about, coming back, he just come back the week previous from Italy, going around the world. He'd been around the world before, but never like that in Europe. And the way Frank tells the story, it was quite the scene when he was there. And then he comes back. And okay, we want you to go to Vegas. You're going to go to Vegas cuz. You're going to Vegas cuz. After the scene in New York, I mean, there was a couple of positive reasons why he didn't want to go to Vegas. He was probably tired from being in Italy, jet lag and everything else. Number one. Number two, Vegas is hard to beat when it comes to Italy. Italy takes the cake every time. And the other thing is, on the other side of it, he had a fight with Suge, and he really didn't want to go to Vegas, in my opinion, because it was just another trip to Vegas. There wasn't anything particularly special about this time going to Vegas. So that's my personal take.
As well as mine. People that I've talked to and I've taken some of this from the information that you've given me because you've given me lots and lots of talking points over the years. You're full of knowledge, and I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly. But
Thanks, man.
it seems that, am I wrong here that Suge Knight was trying to work out the money situation? We have an audit that Tupac was auditing Death Row or attempting to or beginning it, and there was the big fight, the big blow up, where he said, "You know what? After Machiavelli, I'm out." That happened in New York, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, RJ?
Yeah, that happened in New York. And just to go back real quick, one of the things is Vegas just kind of seems like maybe a pale comparison to it. And if you get off that and you're tired and you just want to spend some time with your girlfriend or whatever, they offer you to go to the same place that you'd been going for a year, going to Vegas every other weekend. Probably not that big of a draw, honestly. I mean, just thinking about it out loud, comparing it to Italy and what he had just come back from, doesn't seem to be like too much of a big thing. So, I don't know too many people that have ever talked about it in that perspective. I hadn't, but I think it's something to think about. It's something to consider when you think about what was really motivating him to go to Vegas in the first place.
And if I could add upon that point, think about, if to anybody that's been to a casino, you spend an hour in the casino, it smells like cigarette smoke, it loses its allure very, very quickly. So if you're someone like Tupac, like RJ said, that just came back from Italy, there's really no draw to Vegas. You know, he's been to Tyson fights. I know he wanted to see Tyson, but everything that I've been told was he was dealing with a family situation when it came to William Lassane. Apparently,
Well,
William.
let's go ahead and just
Okay.
let's let the people speak for themselves. I don't know what order they're in, but let's talk about. Did you get lower thirds? If you didn't, we'll just talk about who they are.
Absolutely, I absolutely
Okay,
did.
you got them. Okay, good, cool, excellent. Well, it speaks for itself. Here are the people that were closest to Tupac and whether or not they thought Tupac should go to Vegas or whether or not Tupac wanted to go to Vegas. Well, let her rip.
Kenny, this question is for you. Did
Okay.
Puck mention he didn't want to go to Las Vegas? And what did he say about going?
At the time in New York, I think we had just finished doing MTV, and he had to come back to LA, I think, to do a video. And he didn't want it to go because he was like uneasy about going. He said he didn't want it to go. He felt that, you know, I guess he wasn't feeling too happy. I don't know, but he didn't want to go.
When was Puck planning on leaving Death Row?
That I don't know.
When you took Tupac to the airport to return to California, what did he tell you?
I can't remember that.
Okay.
What did you tell me he told you?
I know I tried.
You and I had a conversation.
Yeah.
You told me that Pac felt like
I
he
think,
was
you
a
know,
dead man walking.
right. What it was is that I think at the time, after we did the
MTV Awards.
MTV Awards, I think after we did the MTV Awards, you know, I don't know what went down, but he wasn't too happy about it, and he didn't care about going anywhere, you know, so he didn't feel like, he didn't want to go to Vegas, I don't even think he wanted to do the video.
Did Puck get into any alterations or altercations while in New York for the MTV Awards?
I can't remember.
What happened in Grant Park when all of them went up there? Snoop didn't want to go, and Pac got upset at Snoop. That's when I guess it started happening between Pac and Snoop. Nas and all of them was going up to the park, and Snoop was back in his hotel. He didn't want to go or something like that.
Okay, pause that.
But don't you recall he said something to you getting on the plane
Something
about?
he wasn't happy. I remember he saying he wasn't happy going on the plane. He didn't want to go. Michael Moore was more into the Michael Moore's the one who said that. So you gotta, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Michael Moore and Al.
Okay.
Good.
Tupac didn't want to go to Vegas, and how that came about was when we were in New York, he was livid about what had happened while he was in New York. So he did not want to go to Vegas. Matter of fact, he fought off going to Vegas all the way to the last second. And when I got there, I was surprised to see him there because I didn't think he was going to go because he had told us that he was not going there with, his words, them sellout to Vegas after what had happened.
Why would he say he didn't want to go to Vegas with those sellout? Who was he talking about?
Well, he was referring to Snoop and what the comment Snoop had made over the radio while we were in the limo.
This would have been when you guys were in New York.
Correct.
During the MTV
MTV
Awards,
Music Awards.
the week before Tupac was shot.
Right.
Now, I'm wondering, Pop went to New York right before, for the MTV Music Awards, right before he went to Vegas. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of belief, you know, they said that Pop didn't want to go to Vegas. And we know that was pretty much the truth. I think that he made it pretty clear. But they said that he was going to go to Atlanta. Do you know anything about that? I mean, that's kind of like one of those things where it's a sentence. He said he wanted to go to Atlanta. Was he just going to come home? Did you know?
No, here it is.
Okay. Hit me.
Pop's cousin, my son, Kenny, was on drugs. And he had taken one of Pop's rifles, one or two, I don't know, stolen them, taken them to Detroit. And Pop heard about it. So Pop was pissed off. And he didn't want to go to Vegas. So he didn't want to go to Vegas, but this was a good reason for him not to go, because he was going to come down here and kick his cousin's ass, right? Beat him, you know how the boys do for taking his shit, you know? But he didn't. That was a big thing. There was my son's wife kept the tape of Pop calling Kenny up, cussing his ass out, coming out and being, I'm gonna kick your ass, I'm gonna do all this here, you know. It wasn't a thing in the family, because, you know, like, oh no, no, it was, first of all, the other cousin was older, and they were cousins, they grew up together. So that's what you do, you know, that's what happened, you know, if you do that, you know, come down. But yeah, that is true. There was a, whether or not to come to Atlanta to beat his cousins, or to go to Vegas.
Do you know why he changed his mind? Do you know?
I don't know why he changed his mind. My sense is that there was pressure on him to go to Vegas. The thing in Atlanta was not as strong as it sounded. You know, the thing with the cousin was not as urgent in his spirit as it sounded. Otherwise, he would have came. It was about stealing his guns. And it was his cousin. So I don't think it was, I mean, looking back, because it didn't happen. It wasn't an urgency for him like that. He can get to that anytime. He could always come to Atlanta and kick his ass. I think there was pressure on him in terms of his work and that thing. You know, his sense of obligation, but he really didn't want to go. They begged him to go. And when he left, my daughter, who was out there, she went with him and left her daughter, my granddaughter, who was at the time 3 or 4. And she left her daughter crying. Tupac bribed the little 4-year-old to stop crying. You're too grown. You always want to go with everybody. When I come back, I'll buy you a big burger, whatever the burger is out there. I'll bring you a big burger back. And gave her some money. And my daughter went because Kadada went to be with Kadada. And yeah, he did not want to go to, because he was with Kadada. He had a thing going on. He had a fantasy that he wanted. He wanted to get married. He wanted to have kids. He had my daughter out there to be the opposite of Kadada. He wanted my daughter to see the different chick, and he wanted Kadada to see the different chick. And they blend up, and they did. You know, Kadada had to get the right weave and the right wig or whatever, and Jamala, because she's from New York and you know, ghetto-ish to that degree, from the Bronx, and you got that swagger with it. You know, so he had something going on, and he was dreaming about getting married and being engaged and being a family man and all of that. So I think it was just a pull, and one pull was stronger than the other. The pull for Vegas was, for me, I think, wasn't so much Vegas as his girl, and you know, that thing that they were doing together, and that dream that he was into, as opposed to the thing in Atlanta was a family thing. It's a gun, you know, the guns, and his cousin is on drugs again, and whatever. But I don't think that, you know, I think that's really what it was, because he would have came. Because he was angry. But being angry with Tupac wasn't like, so he's angry. He's angry 1 minute, but that thing don't carry the next day.
Right.
You know, when he's angry, he gets it out. He does not hold his feelings in.
But he means it, though.
Oh, he means it when he's angry. He means it yes, he does. But once he get it out, and because he's now dealt with it, once he felt like he has dealt with it, either he can get back to it, depending on how important it was, or he's done with it. I'm sure they would have tussled and, you know, whatever they would have done, it would have been fine, because they cousins. They grew up close. But that's what I think when I thought about it later, is that he had that pull with Kadada more than Vegas, with wanting to be married, wanting to have a fiance, and wanting to do a family and that kind of thing.
So he's using that.
You know, and the deepness wasn't so much going to Vegas and that Suge was pushing him, because he did. But because Kadada went, it was because he wanted to be in that, you know, in that situation, and go get it over with and come on back. Go get it over with and come on back. That was the intent, I believe, because his cousin was there, his female cousin, his only big female cousin who he grew up with was there, and he didn't want her in no harm's way. The outlaws was there. He didn't want them in no harm's way. That's hence where they was at. Why they couldn't go to the fight, they in the hotel room, because they couldn't go. Jamala couldn't go. Kadada couldn't go. They had to stay in the room. Girls couldn't go, couldn't hang out with him. Even the grown women couldn't go to certain things. You know, he didn't want us there out of harm's way, whatever he perceived harm's way to be.
That's our sense of responsibility.
That same
Yeah.
sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
So it would appear that there's lots and lots of reasons that Tupac may not have wanted to go to Vegas.
Let's see here. Just rolling back through some of the comments that were made. Somebody mentioned something about how, you know, that Tyson was his friend and that he would have gone to Vegas for Tyson, his friend. I mean, if he hadn't have been to Vegas every other single time Tyson had a fight and hadn't seen Tyson when he wasn't fighting, that could probably be true. And and it's a nice thought. But I mean, I don't care. You know, there are times, I don't care how good a friend you are, there are times when you're just going to have a scheduling conflict and you're not going to, go hang out with your friend no matter how dear and close they are to your heart. So I'm not really sure that that's really an accurate statement, but we'll roll forward with it. Machiavelli Outlaw, welcome to the show. Maze Soul, haven't heard that one. Welcome to the show. Katie Young. Mike says, RJ, why did Suge Knight take the back route to Club 662 that night when they would normally take the other route?
Question.
Well, I mean, it was faster. They wanted to get through the part of Vegas that was the easiest drive, and then, of course, in a completely crazy move, they decide that they're going to take the slowest route to go through Vegas. But, really, whichever route they would have taken to get to Club 662, they really didn't take the back route. There is another route that you can take that is extremely back roads where there's no visibility, and they probably could have made it there in about 15 minutes. But, Jesse, it's out beyond the airport. It's on the other side of the airport there. Ty Blends Callie, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Seeing the numbers going up, by the way. I'm loving it. It's great. Why wouldn't Frank tell Suge that Reggie said no guns while he was with him all day? Frank has addressed that himself. Maybe we'll roll that clip next week when we come on the show. Maybe we'll play that clip. But, Frank was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. In my personal opinion, I think that Frank should have told him. I think that would have been the right thing to do when they were at the Luxor and they were waiting for the cars. It was kind of a judgment call on Frank's part. You got to understand that the gun was in Frank's car, and anybody who's been to Vegas and had to walk from where the valet is at the Luxor to where the public parking is, Frank didn't valet park, and it probably would have been even more complicated if he had. He parked back in the public parking, which is behind the casino. It's no joke. Even if you're at a good huff, it's probably a 20-minute walk from the Luxor valet to where the parking was. So Frank would have walked 20 minutes through the casino to get to his gun, and then 20 minutes walk back. That means that would have kept the crew on ice for 40 minutes. And Frank said, what am I going to tell him? I got to go get my car. My gun was in the car. He said, because the next question out of their mouth was, why is your gun in the car? And he would have had to have said, well, Reggie told us to put guns in the car. So, I'm not sure if that was a move that Frank did to protect Reggie. He made that call, I think personally, and he and I talked about it many times. I told him that I wouldn't have cared for my job at that point. I would have told the truth and said, hey, I don't have my gun. Reggie told us to put our guns in the car. My gun's a half hour away from me now. So at least and then let the cards fall where they might. But, you certainly don't want to throw your boss under the bus to Suge, who was the client of Right Way, because that means you may not be working again. So, I mean, he was kind of caught in a real world dilemma that a lot of us, if he had known clearly that somebody's going to shoot Tupac that night, he probably would have done things a whole lot differently. But at that time, it's really kind of a judgment call that you make because you have an employer and they pay you, they hired you, and they can fire you. And an unemployed security guard is a broke security guard. So I think that there was a lot of that. But I think that that was what Frank explained, and he put it in the movie as well, that was why he made that particular judgment call. I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, and I told him that I thought that was a tragic decision. And I explained to him at that time, I told Frank at that time that, a lot of real cops that are cops and real law enforcement officers, if they've been told not to carry their guns, they probably wouldn't have worked. They'd have said, "I'm carrying my gun, and I don't really give a damn what you say," because they were gainfully employed. They had their full-time job. That was being a cop. Bodyguard's a part-time job. So if they wanted to, not work at that part-time job, they give a shit whether or not Reggie Wright fired them or not, because they had a full-time job, kind of like a Kevin Hackey or even a Les Galden for that matter. Frank had a different situation than them. He didn't have a full-time job other than being Pac's bodyguard. So he was in a little bit of a different position where he couldn't necessarily speak his mind, and that turned into a very fatal and tragic decision.
Yeah.